June 24th, 2019. If you would please to stand with me as we pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If the clerk would please call the roll of the members.
Zachary Urban.
Present.
David Cooter.
Present.
Amanda Weaver.
Here.
Leah Dozman.
Here.
Christy Davis. George Pond.
Present.
Larry Matthews.
Here.
Janice Hoppy.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We've got a couple of proclamations, so I'll move to the podium. And if Joyce Manwaring would please join me. How are you? Good. Thank you. So I'm very pleased to have Joyce here with me tonight. I'd like to read this proclamation. In appreciation of Joyce Manwaring, in recognition of her conscientious and dedicated service to the citizens of Wheat Ridge. Whereas the Mayor and City Council of the City of Wheat Ridge desire to formally express appreciation to Parks and Recreation Director Joyce Manwaring, who has served the City of Wheat Ridge in a dedicated and conscientious manner, and whereas Director Manwaring has provided 40 years of performance and professionalism as a public servant in parks and recreation throughout her career, she has demonstrated strong support for the goals and organization values of the City of Wheat Ridge. And whereas Director Manwaring began her career with the City of Wheat Ridge on February 1st, 1979, as the Recreation Program Supervisor, was promoted to Recreation Superintendent in 1990, and promoted again to Director of Parks and Recreation on November 1st, 2001. And during that time, has served as a facilitator of change and modernization. And whereas over the past 40 years, Director Manwaring has made a lasting impact on the citizens of Wheat Ridge through the development of world-class facilities, parks, and programs. And whereas, over the course of her distinguished career, Director Manwaring has been a tireless advocate for the city, its employees, residents, and all those who choose to recreate in Wheat Ridge. And whereas it is fitting, in conjunction with Director Manwaring's retirement from the City of Wheat Ridge, we formally recognize her many contributions and value to the city and express to her our sincere thanks for her service. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on behalf of the City Council and the people of the City of Wheat Ridge, I, Bud Starker, Mayor of the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim appreciation to Joyce Manwaring for her 40 years of service to the City of Wheat Ridge, and witness thereof on this 24th day of June 2019, Bud Starker, Mayor.
All. That's so nice. Wow. That's so nice. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll tell you just a little story. When I was about 21, I received an award from the Idaho Parks and Recreation Association. I received the Outstanding Student Award, and I was so shy and introverted and never stood up in front of a crowd and talked. I went up and said, "Thank you," and ran off the podium. I've never seen so many disappointed people. So, thank you very much. These are very kind words, and I really appreciate it. It's been an honor, and I have sincerely enjoyed all of my years of serving the Parks and Recreation Department and the community here in Wheat Ridge. Some of you may know my parents grew up in Wheat Ridge and graduated from Wheat Ridge High School. They eventually came back here to live. Because they love the community so much. And so I've always felt a bit of a connection through them and their love for Wheat Ridge. Very gratifying has been to see the park and recreation profession grow over the last 40 years, to see the value that is placed on it now that goes hand in hand with the quality of life and things that citizens expect from their community. So I think that's just been amazing to watch and be a part of. So Thanks to Mayor and Council, Patrick, Jerry, EMT, all of the staff that I've worked closely with, and thank you for all your support for everything in the Parks and Recreation Department. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, Joyce. And I had, back in the 80s and 90s, our company was fortunate to do build some parks for the city of Wheat Ridge, and Joyce was certainly a great person to work with while we were doing that. I would like to invite Coach Miller and his team, his baseball team, up here. So I'm going to move out of the way here for you guys to come on up, because you guys did got something great going. Coach? Thank you. All right. Let's get all these guys back here, you know. Come on, we've got a photo op going on, so. So I would like to congratulate Coach Adam Miller and coaches John Dowd, McKinley Land, and Matt Wright for their work with the Wheat Ridge High School boys baseball team and the 2019 4A Boys Jeffco League baseball champions. So listen, guys, thanks for bringing home the trophy to the city of Wheat Ridge. So I got a little appreciation here that I want to give to Coach Miller and a couple of notes. There are 7 teams in the Jeffco County 4A League. Wheat Ridge High School League record this year was 11-1. The baseball championship game was held at Chuck Griffith Jr. Field at Everett Middle School, and the Wheat Ridge team played the Golden team and defeated them 3-0. And this is the Wheat Ridge High School baseball team's 6th league championship since 2007. So, Coach, I gotta think that you're doing the right thing with these boys. So I want to congratulate you.
Thank you very much.
And all of the guys. You guys really deserve it. So thanks so much. You gotta say something.
Well, I just want to say thank you for everyone for letting us come out, and I don't know. We had a great season. I love these guys, you know. We had a great run, and we appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. All of you guys, and I hope we look forward to a really competitive season next year in 2020. So listen, thanks for bringing home the trophy. We look forward to watching your season next year. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it. Bring home the T-shirt. Okay, we will continue on with our agenda. We have no minutes in our package, so we'll move over that. I would like to ask for approval of the agenda, and that would include any items on the consent agenda that any counselor would like to remove at this time. And I see none, so we will move through the agenda as presented. We'd like to start our business meeting with our citizens' right to speak in the public comment section on any item that is not on the agenda. I will call your name. I have a sign-up sheet. When I call your name, if you would please come to the podium, adjust the microphone so we can hear you clearly. Give us your first name and last name. If you'd spell your last name for the record, give us your address. You'll have 3 minutes to tell us what you'd like to tonight. And our first speaker is Roxanne Runkle and Kelly Metz, either Metz or Meets, on deck.
is Roxanne Runkel, Runkel. Address is 3415 Alkire Way, Golden, Colorado. Good evening. I'm here to talk to you. I spoke to the City Council on January 28th, and I passed out these packets about the trees that were accidentally removed by Evergreen for the Clear Creek Crossing development.
Excuse me, Ms. Runkel, could I get you to move the microphone over?
Okay, thank you. I'm not used to using a microphone, so thank
That's
you.
really good. Thank you so
I
much.
appreciate it. And at that time, I had showed you a map of where my property was and requested a substantial barrier. I do want to inform you that Evergreen has planted trees on my property, which I do appreciate. It's going to take a while for them to grow to be able to actually provide a visual and sound buffer, but I just wanted to let you know that we are working together on some of these issues. We've had a couple of meetings, the adjacent property owners with Evergreen. We met on March 14th. Larry Matthews was there, as well as KCT, or Ty, I think is how you pronounce it, from the county, to discuss barrier options between the Clear Creek Crossing development and the neighborhood. I'm here today because on Monday, June 10th, just a couple of weeks ago, someone had climbed over my fence again and got into my property and let my horse out. And so again, I'm concerned about once the development is there, more and more people coming over into my property and accessing the neighborhood, my safety and my horse's safety, and the other neighbors, adjacent neighbors. I'm concerned about that. So I am requesting from City of Wheat Ridge, or City Council, to possibly look into a minimum 8-foot barrier. If you could somehow help us negotiate with Evergreen or help require that there is an 8-foot barrier between the neighborhood and the development. And let's see, we have the design pattern book, and on page 56, there's some really nice natural stone walls and MSE in the design pattern book, but it does not require any kind of a physical barrier, just landscape barrier. So that's why I'm here, because there's nothing in this document. I don't believe we had an opportunity to provide comments on this, or if we did, none of us knew about it or how to do it. So we're looking for something that would make it more difficult for people to climb over into our neighborhood, something more than a landscape barrier, so a fence or a wall. And I also wanted to invite you to our neighborhood. I was thinking it would be like a field trip. However, I guess there's more to it than you all coming out as a group. You would have to, organize a public meeting or something. I'm not sure. But one by one, if you would like to come out and take a look, just so you could see how close it is to our residents. And the area that I'm proposing that they do a wall is from the corner of my house, which is here, so I have a very large area, over to the Clear Creek Crossing Road. This is owned by someone else, but if a nice, consistent wall would be the best option. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kelly Metz and Michael Cohen on deck.
Hi, my name is Kelly Meets, and my last name is spelled M as in Mary, E-E-T-Z, and I'm Roxanne's neighbor. So I'm going to follow her comments on what we're looking for in some type of barrier. Evergreen has been open with communication and discussing all options that are on the table, and we've appreciated very much working with them on an open level. It does seem like there are things that we would prefer to have in writing long before they're given, and that would be my biggest complaint right now in working with them. But I also understand that there's a lot of loose pieces to put into place before they can give us something like that. So we are working with them. But one thing I want you to know about our neighborhood is we just moved there just a little bit over a year ago. So when the ODP was held for public comment, I didn't even live there yet. So this is my chance now to speak about it. Our neighborhood is pretty special. It's a very quiet. When we moved there, there were 3 houses for sale within 3 different elementary schools that I was trying to find a house in. 3 houses, that was it. And as soon as I saw our house, I said, I want that one. And my realtor said, well, would you like to go in it? I said, sure, we can, but I need you to call their realtor right now. I want it. I want that one. It's in a quiet cul-de-sac. It's lovely. All the neighbors are very lovely. One of the things you need to know about our properties is they're all very different. And so one thing we keep getting told is that we need to come to a comprehensive agreement together, but that doesn't make sense for these 4 properties that actually back directly to Evergreen. What makes sense for these 4 properties is to look at them a little bit more separate to what makes sense to each property. Roxanne's property has a huge area that's going to back directly up to commercial development. She has pastures that are raised, so people will be able to see her horses. And from my understanding, Roxanne has absolutely no desire to have a petting zoo. So my property has the smallest block that's going to back directly up to Clear Creek Crossing. And then the other 2 properties are somewhat similar in that they have very small side yards, and so some kind of huge substantial barrier may make it feel closed in on their sides. So these 4 properties can't necessarily be looked at as one cohesive unit because they're not. They don't go that way. And that's one of the charms about living where we live out west, is that things are a little bit more eclectic. What we all do agree on, all 4 of us neighbors agree on, is that we do need at least an 8-foot barrier. And so in order to be able to do that, we're going to have to come up with a variance, which Evergreen is currently working on. But in order to come to more meetings and do things of this nature is very difficult for all of us. We all work. I have kids. I'm a single mom of kids. I had to pay a babysitter tonight to come to this meeting, and I don't want to have to do that a whole bunch more times simply so that we can have an 8-foot fence instead of a 6-foot fence. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Michael Cohen and Bob Brazel on deck.
Hi, I'm Michael Cohen, C-O-E-N. I live at 13146 West 33rd Avenue, Golden. I'm right where they tore the wall down. I used to park my truck on the end of the street. They asked me to move it so they could tear the wall down and put in the sewer, hook in sewer and water. And they told me at that time it'd be about 3 weeks. I don't know how many months ago that was now, but they've had their water tied in, sewer tied in. And they told me when they took it down, they already had a company that was going to put the wall back up. Well, it's been an awful long time. I'd like to see some kind of pressure on Evergreen to finish that wall back up. They've tied in everything they need to tie in. And my second thing is, we're not on a list to be notified of this meeting. If it wasn't for our neighbors, we wouldn't even known about it. And it directly affects us. That road's gonna be right next to the wall, and I'm right on the other side of the wall. So I'd like to be notified when there are meetings that concern that development. And that's about all I had.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Bob Brazel and Carolyn Duran on deck.
Yeah, Bob Brazel, Brazell, 3830 Carr Street. I'm back. I told you I would be. So I went Monday and filed a formal complaint about my neighbor across the street having an illegal rental. And the gal told me, well, we're having a meeting today, so we'll have somebody get back to you and all that, and which they did. Unfortunately, I didn't get the name of the person who called me because I was bowling at the time when they called me back. But basically, they told me that yes, I was correct. It was an illegal rental because you have to have 100-foot front, 100-foot frontage, and you have to have more than 1,200 square foot lot in R2 to have a duplex. But then she told me, well, we can send somebody around, and kind of survey the thing, but we're really kind of stretched thin. And then I told her that I talked to one of the neighbors who was also concerned and had talked to the people who were living there, and they were moving out because they were building a house and they had completed it. So then I said, well, that's fine, but he's still running it as an Airbnb. And we've had 3 people in there since that, in the last week, over across the street doing the Airbnb thing with him. And she said, well, there's not much we can do about Airbnbs. And I said, well, I don't really understand that, since we do have an ordinance in the city on bed and breakfast. And she said, oh, yes, I know that. And we do have one. And she said, but, we're waiting for guidance from the council on what to do, because we don't know what to do. And I said, well, whatever, it's illegal. It's, we have an ordinance. And she said, well, the problem is we just don't have, we're really short-staffed, and our people are really spread thin, and we just don't have the money or the funds to pursue these zoning violations. Well, as far as I'm concerned, the city's main concern is to provide these kind of services to the public. I mean, zoning laws are zoning laws, and you're supposed to enforce them. And the city manager is supposed to enforce them. And the whole fact that we don't have enough money to enforce our zoning laws, well, it seems to me we can find over $100,000 a year to get some consultants to do absolutely nonsensical things, like we did last year with the whole vision for Wheat Ridge for the next 10 years. We didn't need a consultant to pay them over $100,000 to do that. We have citizens who can do that. We didn't need a consultant to create your own 38. That was a nonsensical thing too. And then we're giving over $500,000 to Local Works every year to have some parties over on 38th Avenue, where you could have city employees doing this with volunteers. So I'm not buying the fact that you people don't have the funds to enforce the laws and the rules of the city. And I think that should be your priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Carolyn Duran and Amy Kingston on deck.
Carolyn Doran, D-O-R-A-N, 2500 Carr Court, Lakewood. And I am here on behalf of Local Works, and I'm here to express our gratitude for the support that we've received from the city and the city council regarding the events that we have held. We just finished the Criterion Bike Race and Brew Fest. It's our 6th year that we did it. It was a gorgeous day. Everyone was happy, and it was a very nice community turnout. And I really want to say thank you, especially to the police department, and especially Sergeant Bobby Dawkins, who is the incident commander, and her professionalism is amazing. Also, Public Works, the support we've received from Public Works to do this event, just on top of it, right there when we need anything. And to do a state champion bicycle race, it takes some, there's some effort involved, and it's quite technical. And the course, we changed the course this year, and everything was very smooth. And we haven't had any complaints, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Amy Kingston and Jenna Bannon on deck.
Hi, my name is Amy Kingston, K-I-N-G-S-T-O-N. My address is 3268 Zinnia Court, Golden, Colorado. I am here because my property backs up to the sound wall that let me back up, sorry. So earlier this week, we heard that part of the Clear Crossing development that they were going to take the existing sound wall and move it 3 feet back, which would involve destroying the current wall and destroying the current wall at the very least. And when I heard that, I grew very concerned. Currently, we have I would estimate 15-foot brick wall that separates my house from the commercial area and also I-70. This wall is essential to live in that neighborhood, partly because of the sound that currently comes from I-70 and that is likely to come from Clear Creek once it's actually up and running. And also it provides a very safe environment for my 2 kids to play in the backyard. I don't know if representatives from Clear Creek are here today. I was concerned enough to come and say this wall is essential for my life, and I just wanted you guys to know how important it is to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jenna Bannon and Jennifer Yates on deck.
Good evening. My name is Jenna Bannon, B-A-N-N-O-N. I am a new homeowner at 3278 Zinnia Court. I am a neighbor of some terrific people who are speaking today, and we have heard about the wall that is the barrier between our homes on Zinnia Court and the Young Field frontage road, that wall is going to be taken down or moved, or something's going to be happening with that wall. So just to really reinforce what our neighbors are saying, I'm a single parent, so that wall does provide me with some safety between all the things that are happening on the other side, the La Quinta, the gas station, and the Denny's. Also, sound from I-70 is really pretty bad right there on those first few rows of homes. So it does create that sound barrier as well. So we're really here just because we're hearing things, you know how neighbors are, we talk to each other, which is so fantastic. And being a new homeowner, I really don't want my property value to decrease. We are excited about Clear Creek. We have been really kind of disconnected on communications with them over the past year, so hopefully we can get things cleared up. It is called Clear Creek after all, and we want to really open up and streamline communications, and hopefully that wall won't be coming down. I actually talked to a neighbor today who's been living on the street for 40 years. And I guess maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago, he came to you, and you all paid $150,000 for that beautiful red brick wall. And so come see the wall. It's your investment. It's our investment as well. And so we hope that it stays. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jennifer Yates.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Yates. I live at 3700 Miller Street, and I want to give you some numbers tonight on youth nicotine use. These numbers come primarily from the CDC, Tobacco Free Colorado, and the Healthy Kids Colorado survey. I can give you details about where the numbers come from, but in general, they're last year's surveys, and the numbers are changing rapidly. Specifically on the Healthy Kids survey, it's from 2017, and the 2019 survey is not due out until August or September. I think the numbers will be higher when that information comes out, from what I've heard from my kids and my teachers, but even if the numbers don't show an increase, they are high enough as it is. 27% of Colorado youth use e-cigarettes regularly. 33% of Colorado youth are using some sort of nicotine product. 44% of Colorado youth have used e-cigarettes at least once. 13.7 years old is the average age when kids try smoking for the first time. 350 teens become regular smokers each day in the U.S. 4.9 million youth are current tobacco product users in 2018 nationwide. 99% of e-cigarettes sold in the U.S. retail stores contain nicotine. And one statistic that I think we can greatly impact with the right policies is the fact that 90% of underage users are supplied by their 18 to 20-year-old peers. I hope that we can work together to inform and reduce youth nicotine use. Thank you.
Thank you. That's, pardon me. That's all of the speakers that I have signed up to speak tonight. Is there anyone here who has not had the opportunity to sign up who would like to speak? You may do so at this time. I don't see anyone. And Mr. Matthews, I'll go for you to a comment.
Thank you. Mr. Goff, can I just ask, has Evergreen approached you with any of these issues? Because I did go to that one meeting, that was a couple of months ago, but we've had all those neighbors here. Has that issue been broached with us?
No, I haven't heard about. I mean, I knew there was these neighborhood boundary issues that I thought Evergreen was working through, and it sounds like they are communicating with the neighborhoods. There is a representative here tonight from Evergreen who has already sent an email to her staff to reach out to Mr. Cohen on his issue, and I'm sure she's going to do that with the rest of the issues.
Okay, I would say that it appears to me that Evergreen has been a good neighbor, but having been in the construction industry along with our mayor, we may have to be proactive here, because it would, I assume, involve some kind of perhaps change order. So I assume we may hear about that at some point in time.
Yeah, and most of it, I think the tree planting, and that's all being absorbed as part of the budget. Haven't heard that there's a need for a change order yet, but there might be with some of the walls, so, but.
There's an 8-foot wall, that's,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
And the variance process is in place for the 8-foot wall.
Thank you. We will move to our agenda item number 1. This is the consent agenda item. Ms. Dozeman, would you introduce this item, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Consent agenda item 1A, motion to award a contract and approve subsequent payment of $86,601 to Miracle Recreation of Dallas, Texas for the Wheat Ridge Recreation Center Playground Replacement Project and approve a 10% contingency in the amount of $8,600. 1B, motion to award a contract and approve subsequent payments to AV Tech Electronics Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $135,500 for police vehicle equipment and upfit installation services with the option to allow up to 4 additional one-year terms. 1C, motion to award a contract and approve subsequent payments to Short Elliott Hendrickson Incorporated, Denver, Colorado, in an amount not to exceed $144,150 for professional services for the design of 52nd Avenue and Ward Road intersection. 1D, motion to award a contract and approve subsequent payments to Short Elliott Hendrickson Incorporated, Denver, Colorado, in an amount not to exceed $555,877.41 for professional services for the design of a pedestrian bridge, plaza areas, and linear park. 1E, motion to award a contract and approve subsequent payments to HDR Incorporated, Denver, Colorado, in an amount not to exceed $118,647 for professional services for property easement acquisition services for pedestrian bridge, plaza areas, and linear park.
Thank you. And a motion is now in order to consider consent agenda items 1A through 1E.
I motion to approve consent agenda items 1A through 1E.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Would the clerk please poll the council?
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. Mr. Keeter, would you please introduce item number 2?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 2, Council Bill number 09-2019, an ordinance reappointing presiding municipal judge Christopher Randall and approving a presiding municipal judge services agreement. At issue, the city's home rule charter provides for appointment of the municipal court judge for a term of 2 years. The current term of presiding judge Christopher Randall expires July 1st, 2019.
Thank you. This is a public hearing and an ordinance on second reading. Will the clerk please provide me an ordinance number?
That'd be ordinance 1669.
I'm going to open the public hearing. This is not quasi-judicial. Open the public hearing. And Mr. Goff, do we have a report on this, or we've?
We do. Mr. Dahl, our city attorney, will give you a quick report.
Mr. Dahl, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You have this agenda item in front of you, and as you know, the judge did show up for your study session last Monday and answered a number of questions. And I have informed the judge that it was unnecessary for him to come to this meeting since you had a pretty full discussion. In the interim, his mother has passed away, and he's the executor of that estate and needs to be away in any case. So I would ask that if you've got questions, further questions for the judge, which I know he'd be happy to answer, that you would continue the matter for action at a later meeting. If you don't, or at least to help you decide if you do or not, as you know, his contract is required to be renewed once every 2 years. He's one of the 3 appointments that the council makes, the judge, the city attorney, and the city manager. He has been the judge here in Wheat Ridge for 17 years. I think he runs a pretty good court, and he's pretty open. I know he especially appreciates 2 things. The ability to hear from the council on any issues or questions you have, and he's really very open about responding, and he doesn't get a lot of questions, and I think he'd be happy to get more about sort of the court process itself, and you had the opportunity to sort of see how he responds to questions. A very thoughtful person, and I encourage you, if you have got questions about court process, to ask him about that. And I will tell you, as he, I think, also mentioned it during the study session, he can't and won't comment on a pending case. And that's just a very important rule of judicial ethics, and I support him in that. The second thing that he always mentions to me that he'd like to see more of would be council members attending a court session. I find that invaluable, frankly. It's like a site visit that you do on a piece of property. There's no substitute for having been there and seeing kind of, well, how does it really happen, and how does he treat defendants, and what kind of things come up. He mentions this every time his contract comes up, and I encourage the council to attend a court session if you have a chance. If you want a recommendation on what's a good day to go, just let me know, and I'll get in touch with the court clerk so that you're at a session that's not really boring, that instead there's some interesting things going on. You can see the dynamic that is present in our municipal court and how we provide justice, because that's another product that the city provides in addition to the other products we provide. So he's not asking for any change in his compensation. There are some benefits changes that really just kind of standardized benefits that he's been getting. So if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. If you're ready to act, then fine. If you do have questions for him, then I'd ask you to continue this for 2 weeks.
Thank you, and I'll express on behalf of the council and the city our condolences to Judge Randall. Before we go to questions for council, I will ask if there's any public that would like to speak on this issue. I have no one signed up. Is there anyone here who's not signed up who would like to speak on agenda item number 2? Okay, we will move past public comment, and I will open it up for questions of council. Are there questions of council of Mr. Dahl? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing, and a motion is order. Mr. Keeter.
Thank you. I move to approve Council Bill 09-2019, an ordinance reappointing presiding municipal judge Christopher Randall and approving a presiding municipal judge services agreement on second reading, and that it take effect upon adoption.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. Ms. Hoppy, would you please introduce agenda item number 3?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Council Bill number 08-2019, an ordinance amending Chapter 26 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning the regulation of animal-related facilities, case number ZOA-19-01. At issue, the purpose of the proposed ordinance is to define animal daycare facility and allow it as a special use in Commercial 1 and Commercial 2 zone districts, add supplementary regulations for animal-related facilities, including specifications related to outdoor play yards, and update the definitions and use table for consistency and clarity.
Thank you. This is a ordinance on second reading. It is I will open a public hearing that is non-quasi judicial. Will the clerk please give me an ordinance number?
That'll be ordinance 1670.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open the public hearing. And Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this?
We do. Mr. Ken Johnstone.
Thank you, Mayor Patrick. Ms. Hoppy. I don't have a lengthy presentation, but give you all a little background on where we've been. The permissibility of outdoor play yards associated with doggy daycare facilities has been the topic of discussion since late last year. It really came up as a topic from 2 local businesses, one existing business and one proposed business, and those business owners are both here today. One of those located, the existing business located on 4500 block of Wadsworth, and the proposed business located on the 38th Avenue corridor between Wadsworth and Sheridan. In response to that, City Council has had 2 study sessions, one in December 17th of last year, and then more recently on April 15th of this year, where we received direction to move forward with the ordinance in broad terms that we have before you tonight. Historically, the city has certainly regulated outdoor activities associated with animal businesses, let's just say largely, and this includes the daycare business. Prior to consideration of this ordinance, only indoor doggy daycare facilities would be allowed in the C1, C2, and mixed-use zone districts. Outdoor doggy daycare and kennels with outdoor runs are currently only allowed in the city's heavy commercial, so C2, industrial employment, and agricultural districts with approval of a special use permit. And so what we're really proposing to do with this ordinance is to allow the doggy daycare through that same approval process in the C1 and the C2 zone districts. And that was your direction at the April 15th meeting. We did meet with the two business owners in the course of adopting the ordinance to attempt to make some accommodation to, align the ordinance that we were drafting reasonably with what council directed, but also with their business models. And I think we've achieved that, but they're certainly welcome to testify and agree or disagree. If adopted as proposed, the animal daycare with outdoor activity areas, so dog runs, training areas, would be allowed in the C1 and C2 zone districts. It was council's direction not to consider allowing it in the MU, the mixed-use zone districts, since those are, by definition, more residential, including, you could have, and we will have, a mixed-use vertical, and thinking that might not be a good fit in those locations. So we drafted it in that manner. And then a number of fairly simple and straightforward, we think, operational requirements in terms of the size of outdoor areas, the number of animals that can be out there, the requirement that they have to have supervision. The maximum number was proposed at 15 to align it with some state regulations. Hours of operation are proposed to go from dawn to dusk. We did have a healthy discussion of the ordinance at the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission forwards a recommendation of approval. And with that, I'm glad to answer questions.
Thank you. Before we go to questions of council, I have several people signed up from the public to speak on this, and I'd like to invite them to the podium now. Our first speaker is Tanya Cardwell and Shannon Cole on deck.
Hello, Tanya Cardwell. My address is 1835 South Vallejo Street, Denver, Colorado, 80223. And really, I just want to take one last opportunity to give my hurrah for this. Obviously, I'm in support of this zoning amendment, and I also just want to formally thank all of you for just listening and giving me your time and even responding to my text messages. Christy, Leah. So yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Shannon Cole and Chris Heydrich on deck.
Good evening, Shannon Cole, K-O-L-E. I reside at 1548 Gaylord Street in Denver, Colorado, and I am here to express my support for this amendment, and just wanted to state my reasoning. It seems that as the zoning code is currently written, dog training companies in particular are effectively segregated away from the public by being limited to industrial and agricultural zones. And I feel that unfortunately such properties are removed from real life distractions, including pedestrians and children and suburban noises and cars and people. And these distractions are extremely helpful when preparing a dog to be safe and reliable in the real world. And maybe I'm biased because I'm a dog trainer, but I feel this amendment will increase the number of polite, tolerant, resilient dogs in Wheat Ridge who are tolerant around real life distractions, which I feel will benefit the community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Chris Heydrich and Ron Cardwell on deck.
Good evening. I'm Chris Heydrich, H-E-I-D-R-I-C-H. I live at 1655 Pierce Street in Lakewood. I would like to express support this evening for the zoning amendment, which would allow outdoor enclosed dog spaces in commercial areas. I speak as a dog owner and a consumer. My dogs are like my kids. My standards for where I take them for training are high. I am attracted to the possibility of having my dogs trained in an inviting commercial property. Commercial properties tend to offer more comfortable environments compared to large industrial warehouses. For this reason, I ask your support for this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ron Cardwell and Preet Kangura on deck.
Hello, my name is Ron Cardwell. Last name is Cardwell. I live at 1835 South Vallejo Street in Denver. I also want to express my support of this amendment. Having dogs in commercial areas is, as the other speakers have said, it's a great way to socialize them and get them accustomed to the sights and sounds of the city. And it also gives a good opportunity for the owners to have a convenient place to drop their dogs off as well. And I also want to express my appreciation to all of you for the time you've taken to seriously look at this amendment and take it seriously. And obviously my wife is Tanya, and you guys have been great in walking her through the process as well. So I really appreciate that, and I've seen that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Preet Kangura and Julie McLean on deck.
Hi, good evening. My name is Preet Kangura, Khangura. I live at 3753 Stewart Street in Denver. My wife and I work full-time, and we use Zen, and Zen Doggy has been a savior to us to have a safe and dependable care for our dogs. Our youngest, Blue, loves going and can't wait to jump out of the car to meet the staff each morning. The use of the exterior grounds at Zen Doggy are essential for the dogs to learn social skills, relieve themselves, and expend energy. Since Zen Doggy uses small group sessions with staff members present, the concern for noise from the dogs barking is immaterial to the surrounding businesses and homes. The dogs are never left unattended and are not put in kennels on the exterior grounds, which is usually the cause for noisy animal environments. I fully support the zoning change to benefit the community and the families that are focused on having well-trained and obedient dogs. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Julie McLean.
My name is Julie McLean, McLean. I reside at 3335 Zephyr Court in Wheat Ridge, Colorado. I'm the owner of Zen Doggy Den, and I think everyone pretty much covered everything, but I just want to give my gratitude and thank you guys so much for hearing this and letting us be heard as a whole. And I think this is really going to make some great changes for the city of Wheat Ridge. So I'm just very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all of the speakers I have signed up to speak. Is there anyone here who is not signed up who would like to speak on this item? Okay, we will close our public comment portion of the of this agenda item, and I will move to questions from council of Mr. Matthews.
I missed part of what you were saying about the dawn to dusk part. Could you reiterate that for me?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
You said something about limited dawn to dusk.
Those are what we propose to have the hours of operation for the outdoor activities.
Okay, so they can still have their pets inside. I mean, it's doggy daycare, so in the winter when it's dusk at 4:30, they just move the dogs inside then and wait for their owners to pick them up?
Correct, to some extent. We also anticipated that there could be needs both for kenneling, because some limited kenneling is also allowed as an accessory use, that the dawn to dusk limitation does not prohibit them from allowing dogs to relieve themselves. So they could, if a dog needed to do such a thing, they could take them out after those hours, likely more on an individual basis.
Okay, it seems like we'd have said like 6 o'clock or something, but that's fine. Just so that it makes it easier for the people to know when they have to be there. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions? Then I'm going to close the public hearing. Ms. Hoppy, a motion is in order.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve Council Bill Number 08-2019, an ordinance amending Chapter 26 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning the regulation of animal-related facilities on second reading, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Ms. Davis.
I just want to quickly thank staff for working on this, and I also want to thank the business owners and possible future business owners and the professionals in the industry, because I think you've really handled this in a respectful manner for us to come to a compromise and come up with a good solution. So I wanted to thank you all for your efforts too, because it was nice to work with you all.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. We will move to agenda item number 4. Mr. Pond, would you please introduce this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 4, resolution number 35-2019, a resolution approving a major subdivision plat with right-of-way dedication for property zone mixed-use neighborhood and located at 10191 West 38th Avenue, case number WS-19-02 Gemini.
Thank you. This is a resolution. It is a quasi-judicial public hearing. If you intend to speak on this matter, would you please stand and let me administer the oath? So if you would stand and raise your right hand, and each of you, do you intend to tell the truth as you know it in this matter? If you do, say I do. Thank you very much. I'm going to open the public hearing. And Mr. Goff, we have a presentation on this from staff.
We do. Mr. Scott Cutler in our planning departments.
Mr. Cutler, please continue.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Scott Cutler. I'm a planner with the Community Development Department. Tonight I'm presenting case number WS-1902, which is a request for approval of a major subdivision at 10191 West 38th Avenue. I'd like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, the subdivision regulations, and this digital presentation. This property is within the city of Wheat Ridge, and all appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met. Therefore, City Council has jurisdiction to hear the case. So this is a 2018 aerial view of the property. It's outlined in red. It's just under half an acre, and it's a single-family home currently. It's located on West 38th Avenue, parallel with Lee Street and a couple blocks west of Kipling Street, and just east of Lena Gulch. The surrounding area is a mix of commercial and residential. There's a multi-unit assisted living facility across the street, Kipling Ridge Shopping Center to the southeast. We have some residential to the west and northwest, and then some more commercial to the east, including the new Circle K development. The surrounding zoning, the property itself is zoned mixed-use neighborhood. It was rezoned by City Council in 2015. And then the surrounding areas to the east are commercial, kind of gaining intensity as you head towards Kipling Street. There's some C1 zoning to the south, southwest, and east. We've got mixed-use commercial along Kipling and part of 38th, planned commercial development just to the east. We have R1 zone property to the west, and then some planned residential further west on 38th Avenue. So quickly, since this is not the only subdivision you'll hear tonight, a subdivision is a reconfiguration of lots, tracts, or parcels for sale or development. So subdivisions just reconfigure those lots, tracts, and parcels, but they do not change the zoning or any permitted uses on the property. Purpose of a subdivision is to create developable parcels for a land use that is already permitted by the underlying zoning. So the request this evening, it's an 8-lot subdivision, and that would take the form of 4 duplexes with separate ownership. Each lot is approximately 2,400 to 2,500 square feet, and the plat also constitutes a central access easement for a driveway, utility easements, and then drainage easements on the perimeter of the property. This is a view of the plat. This is on the second page of the plat document, which is in the Planning Commission staff report. It shows the central access and utility easement. Then there's a 4-foot strip of right-of-way dedication along 30th Avenue frontage for the construction of a sidewalk as part of the development. Drainage easements are located on the eastern and western edges of the site, as well as between the southern and northern lots sets. And then a small portion of the extreme northwest corner is dedicated as a Lena Gulch easement. So the process, Wheat Ridge is not a full-service city. We sent the application on referral to outside agencies, fire, water, sanitation, as well as completed an internal review with Planning and Public Works. Public Works is continuing to review the remaining civil construction drawings, but at this point, Public Works and Planning have found the plat and the site plan for the site to be approvable, and there are no concerns from any of the utility agencies. On June 6th, Planning Commission gave a recommendation of approval for this application, the major subdivision. And we had a 15-day public noticing for City Council with no contact received. Ultimately, staff has concluded the request meets the subdivision regulations and all agencies can serve the property. It will allow the development of the site as allowed under the current MUN zoning to proceed. For those reasons, staff recommends approval of the request. I am available for questions, and the applicant is also in the audience. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Before we move to questions, I have one, I would like to move to public comment. I have one person signed up, Jan Rose, if you'd like to come forward.
Hi, my name is Jan Rose. I live at 10221 West 38th Avenue. I am the neighbor immediately to the west of this development and the last R1 zoned property on 38th Ave between Kipling and Miller. I have no intrinsic objection to this development. I believe in property rights. I believe in not fighting City Hall. I believe in the fact that the corner of 38th and Kipling is wonderfully convenient. I love my house there. I can grab the 38 bus. I can grab the 100 bus. I can walk to the Sprouts. It's a terrific location. I understand that it is worthy of additional development. I have just a personal preference for not liking the 3-story rectangles that are taking over our town, but I'm sure some people love them, and the owner has the right to do that. My concerns are related to how this is going to impact my property, so I brought you some handouts, and I will pass them down the row, because I'm not going to waste an entire inkjet cartridge on y'all. Hope you understand. That's the backyard of my property. We share a 140-foot property boundary. You can see it's currently a chain link fence with very mature, decades old, 20-foot high lilacs, choke cherries, both white and purple lilacs. Beautiful area. All those shrubs are going to be torn down. The 3 trees you see in that photo are going to be torn down. Those trees help absorb 10 to 20% of the carbon monoxide and VOCs from the traffic that backs up on 38th Avenue, 3 sets of lights deep to take a left onto Kipling. Those are the last 3 trees on 38th Avenue between Kipling and Miller. As a city council, you guys have got to keep some trees alive in the city of Wheat Ridge. You've got to keep some neighborhood character going here. I don't mind development, but I do mind the loss of the trees, the loss of the habitat, the loss of the songbirds. So I'd like to recommend to the city council that with this property and with all future properties in which you're burying the utilities, put a nesting box on top of the old telephone pole. Don't tear it down. Put a nesting box up there. There's a whole bunch. There's a red-tailed hawk that's going to lose his habitat, a great horned owl, and a whole bunch of songbirds. So I am disappointed that I'm going to lose all those shrubberies and those 3 trees. I really wish the owner and the architect would design the fence to allow me to keep those lilacs, et cetera, but I have received no informative response on that. That's what the 8 units look like. What you'll see on the west-hand side is a solid 32-foot wall, 32-foot high, running the entire 140-foot barrier that's replacing that current backyard shot. That's a significant impact to the quality of my life. Again, here's the outline, so you can see that it is jammed from property line to property line, with just an asphalt strip for parking running down the center. There's literally no greenery left. This is an example of a similar house by the same architect. Notice how close that property is to a house that looks very similar to mine on the west-hand side, and how it bundles right up against the property line. Finally, and the Planning and Zoning Commission is aware of this, I have 24 solar panels. I generate so much solar electricity that Xcel pays me money every year. I only pay $5.27 to connect to the grid. All my electricity is free. However, there's a 32-foot high wall going up. The sun rises in the east. On the east side of my property, 140 feet long, that is my solar generation from 7 in the morning till 11 in the morning. And what you see is that I average 43% of my total solar capture between 7 and 11 when the sun is rising in the east. And the other half is from 11 to dusk. is the other half of my solar capture. So it's going to be you guys I'm coming for if I start paying more than $5.27, or if I don't get the same check I get from Xcel, because that development that you approved will have blocked my view. Finally, there's an indication of the current shade characteristics, and what you see is the house that's there now blocks that whole section of my front yard early in the morning. But then as the sun rises, the dappled sunlight begins to block that view. And then it clears the front yard by 11. You can just see the outline of the tree, and you can tell the sun is overhead, giving me full access to the solar panels. So once again, I don't object to this, but there has been a disappointing lack of communication with the owner and with the architect. And I really want to make you aware that my city councilmen are going to be hearing from me if that fence gets damaged and my dogs get loosed. If that encroaches on my property value, if they start building chain link over the property line and onto my property to get all that construction equipment between our two houses. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. That was the only speaker that I had signed up to speak. Is there anyone here who is not signed up to speak on this item who would like to speak at this time? Okay, I don't see anyone. We will close our public comment portion and open the session to questions from council, of staff or the applicant. Ms. Dozman.
So some of the issues that were brought up this evening were also addressed at the Planning Commission meeting. Were there any solutions or anything that had been discussed as in the minutes from that session?
Specific to the solar access, I'm not a solar access expert, so certainly don't want to represent myself as such, but one of our commissioners, actually the newest appointment, Mr. Will Kearns, that you appointed, does some professional work on solar access. His opinion, and obviously it wasn't based on any kind of technical analysis of this specific site, was that that the solar access impacts would be limited. Now, that's my understanding of the discussion at the Planning Commission meeting. But again, I'm not a solar access expert. We, unlike some communities, don't have kind of a solar access ordinance. We, as was noted by Ms. Rose, the height of the buildings is proposed at 32 feet. That's consistent with the MUN zoning, which has a maximum of 35 feet, and which is really our citywide maximum standard for all of our residential zone districts is 35 feet, as council is aware. So there's no special requirements that we can impose in terms of guaranteeing solar access for solar panels. I would say that it's worthy of consideration as a topic down the road if council is so inclined. It's also something that should the city council choose to expand the applicability of the bulk claim ordinance, that would have a practical effect of preserving some solar access in these situations. As to the trees, again, we don't have a tree preservation ordinance. They will meet their maximum open space requirement, which I believe is 15% for the MUN zoning. So there will be landscaping on the site. There will be stormwater detention, so we'll release with the water quality feature into the Lena Gulch. Does that respond?
Ms. Davis?
Did you have any more? So is the property owner, are they here today?
They are.
So I guess I just have some questions. The picture that was sent around, I don't know, you didn't get a chance to see it. Have you set what these are going to look like?
Sir, if you could, it looks like we're going to have some questions for you, so if you would please come to the podium and give us your name.
Good evening. My name is Matt Roach.
Just if you adjust the microphone, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Matt Roach, and I'm the property owner. I live at 10220 West 26th Avenue, Lakewood, Colorado. And so I've not seen the pictures. I do understand the concerns about the solar. I have talked with Jen briefly, I don't know exactly what to do to resolve it. I know there's a tree where the first property is. It kind of lines up with our first building. It's where her house, right close to her house. It's 30 feet. So, you know, and it blocks that whole area. And it's not necessarily blocking the solar, the light there right now. So I don't know that 2 feet's going to change that tremendously. So I don't know exactly what that is until that's built. I have talked with her and told her I'd be glad to meet with her through the process, and if it affects her, I would work through that process with her and would be willing to do that. But I don't really know what that, you know, what the cost of that will be to her. But I'm certainly not trying to cause any difficulties for her. I've also talked to her about the fence line again, and I understand that she enjoys the shrubbery there, and it's probably on our property line. I don't know exactly where that works, but I would, again, be willing to work with her to try to put something there that would make her happy. But we may have to remove some of that to do this development. And so redevelopment's difficult. I understand the difficulties for her, and we're not trying to intrude on her and her life. And I would certainly work with her to a reasonable extent to try to make things work for her too. But I don't really have the answers to all of those questions. And I'm not sure what 2 feet changes as far as the solar. And the blockage of where the solar's at, if you kind of look at the property, there's a huge tree that she's talking about. It's on the very front of the property, and it's right beside her house. It's on our piece of property. But it's 30 feet tall. And so we're not necessarily just putting up 30 feet right beside her house where there's nothing already there existing. It's just we're now putting a unit up where this big tree stands. And we will have to remove that tree. We have some landscape design where we'll be putting trees back on the property to fit the development. So I don't know if that's completely what she's looking for now, but I'll be glad to meet with her. And I've told her, I talked to her after the first meeting, and I have reached out to her and sent her a couple of emails to talk to her. And I've not got a chance to get over there. We kind of have to, when we get in the build process, if we get to that, work through that with her. I'd certainly be willing to do that. That's really all I could do.
Thank you.
So I guess my question was more of the building, the shape of the building, not the trees and I mean, I have questions about that too, but the shapes, I mean, I think she had a picture, I think Mr. Keeter might have handed it to you. I guess my question, and it's probably to you, and also Mr. Johnstone, if that is what the buildings are going to look like, and
Yes.
no, there's one that I don't want to get, it's real boxy, square, no windows.
This description?
Yes. Is that really what it's going to look like?
Yes.
So, Mr. Johnstone, does that meet like the bulk plane requirements?
We don't have bulk plane in MUN. We only have bulk plane in R1C.
So is there any, I guess my question would be, is there any discussions, and maybe this isn't the place, of the look of the buildings?
We've gone through those discussions with Wheat Ridge. When we presented this, they actually made us change it. All 4 units are not exactly the same. We've had to change the back units. We had to change the footprint of the back units. So they visually and architecturally look different. So they're not exactly the same. But as far as the architectural design and what you see, this is at Wheat Ridge. There are quite a bit of windows in the back. And the architectural features in the back have changed. You don't see it, doesn't represent it.
Yeah.
It's not just flat across the back. There's actually some bump outs and some architectural features and design that were put in the back of the buildings. So it just doesn't representing in this picture. You're seeing that is the side view. If you were on 38, that's what you would see on the road.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate somewhat.
Changed. This was the windows have changed. There will be a different windows here, different windows. The architect is working on that. This rendering was the very first one, but this is a building design that we'll be building, what you see. There may be a change in the window design, but it's just, this is what we're building. There is some architectural changes that we changed that Wheat Ridge asked us to change on the back of the buildings. So it doesn't represent that in the picture, but we are making, and we have made, and it's been approved through Wheat Ridge that those changes were acceptable.
Ms. Hoppy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to ask just a clarifying question. So in the corner of what looks like Lot 1, there's currently a tree there that is 30 feet tall. That tree is on your property. That tree will have to be removed, but the building that's going there is going to be 32 feet tall. So it's only 2 feet, in essence, taller than what the sunlight blockage that's currently there. Thank you.
Mr. Pond?
Thank you. A couple questions for staff. The MUN zoning, I believe, includes the requirement for the architectural and site design standards in this case?
It does. The MUN zoning has the architectural requirements embedded, so requirements for masonry as primary material, there's requirements for a certain amount of window fenestration, there's requirements for change of materials for certain distances, there's a requirement for articulation in the footprint. So how you solve to that obviously is different in every project and is not one that we dictate kind of the taste of or the style of, as long as you're meeting kind of that level of articulation, the quality of materials, the amount of window fenestration, and the change in materials. How you do that, we don't necessarily micromanage, though you can see from the applicant's comments that obviously we do have a lot of input. It's going through an administrative site plan review. I'm not sure that it's in its final form yet. I could ask Scott, but there's been a back and forth over a number of iterations.
And the MUN zoning and or the architectural site design standards also have some kind of triggers when you're next to residential. Is that correct?
They do, and I'm not sure at this height of development whether those have been triggered, but we do have residential standards for how you transition to single-family residential. Scott, I don't know if any of those requirements were triggered on this project?
Some of them were. So adjacent to a single-family property, there's a minimum required setback of 15 feet to the property line from building face to property line, and then if it's a 3-story building, it's actually a 20-foot step back for the 3rd story, so it actually would have to tier to make that much less imposing of an architectural feature.
Excellent. And then lastly, all of that architectural stuff. In fact, tonight we're not really adjudicating the architectural issues here. We're looking at the subdivision of the plat into parcels that can be developed, and I see that there hasn't been any request for variances outside of the documents and or code that we've been discussing.
No, the density of the project is actually less than is allowed under the MUN zoning.
Mr. Matthews?
These renderings showed about a 3-foot high buildings, 3 foot on 30 foot, approximately 3 stories. How many bedrooms in each unit?
It's 3 bedrooms.
And where's everyone going to park?
There's individual parking. It's a 1-car garage, so the 3 stories, there's garage parking underneath. There's parking on the front. And one of the reasons we went with 8 units instead of 9 is between the units, it creates parking space between each unit. So, and then there's parking, it's a 24.5-foot drive. So it allows a little bit of parking in front of the units. There's enough space to drive, but that's, I mean, there'll be 2 parking spaces, basically, one inside the garage, and then there's drive in front of the house. So that's capability of 2 cars for the homeowner. And then we have some excess parking in between each unit if someone comes over. I'm assuming you can park in front of them unless there's some ordinance that says you can't with a 24.5-foot drive. Gives you plenty of access to get a car through with parking in front of a unit.
3-bedroom homes, that's your target market then is families with children?
Sir?
With a 3-bedroom home, your target market is families with children?
Yes, sir.
Where do they play?
Where do they play?
From what I've seen here, there's going to be no grass.
Play. There's a nice park. You guys have created a great park right on the other side of the road. There's quite a bit of park and recreation area that we'll actually pay into to build this development to help kind of move that forward.
So they're going to send 5-year-olds across Kipling Avenue to go to the park.
So there's adequate places for the children to play there, but there's not huge backyards if that's what you're asking about. There's not.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Before I close the public hearing, are there any additional questions of the applicant or staff? Ms. Dozeman.
Have we done a traffic impact of, I mean, I know there's a lot of development going on over there, and I know that we're early in the phase, but,
This number of units wouldn't trigger any requirement for a traffic impact study.
okay, and in the event that there's at least 2 cars per unit, where would the additional parking be? I mean, is it 1 car garage and then there is a space per each?
There is a drive in front of the garage where there's enough room to park. So you could park 2 cars in line. One would be in the garage and one would be outside of the garage in the drive.
In the driveway? Is there?
In the driveway.
Okay.
Not in the drive aisle, but it's an actual driveway where you have a car that parks there. So, I mean,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Before I close the public hearing, are there any additional questions of the applicant or staff? I'm going to close the public hearing. Mr. Pond, a motion is in order.
Thank you. I move to approve resolution number 35-2019, a resolution approving a major subdivision with right-of-way dedication for property located at 10191 West 38th Avenue in zone mixed-use neighborhood for the following reasons. 1, City Council has conducted proper public hearing that meets all public notice requirements as required by Section 26-109 and 26-407 of the Code of Laws. 2, the requested subdivision has been reviewed by the Planning Commission, which has forwarded its recommendation of approval. 3, the subdivision plat has been found in compliance with Article 4 of Chapter 26 of the Code of Laws. 4, all agencies can provide services to the property with improvements installed at the developer's expense and with the following conditions. 1, prior to recordation, the applicant shall pay the required fees in lieu of parkland dedication. 2, the developer shall enter into a subdivision improvement agreement and a lot sale restriction covenant agreement prior to the recordation of the subdivision plat. And 3, prior to issuance of building permits, the developer shall provide homeowners association covenants for review and approval by staff.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Mr. Urban. Is there discussion on the motion? Mr. Matthews.
Thank you, sir. It baffles me that we don't listen. We approve something with this kind of density over on Upham Street, and now there's a petition circulating to reverse our decision. Lakewood's got a Amendment 200. They're trying to limit some of this high-density development in their city. I gotta believe that a 3-bedroom place is gonna generate at least 3 or 4 cars per unit. We don't know where they're gonna park, and I know it's better not be on 38th Avenue. And I understand that we're not here tonight to talk about architectural standards and, you know, what the buildings are gonna look like, but this is just step 1, and if we approve step 1, then we can't, you know, we're telling this gentleman that no parking, no place for the kids to play is just okay. I don't understand it. When do we start listening to our people in the city that they don't want this kind of development? Property line to property line, straight up in the air. I know what's driving it, and that Amendment 200 in Lakewood, I read a report. The pro sides generated, on the last report I saw, $250,000 for their advertising. $200,000 came from the National Realtors Association. $25,000 came from the Colorado Real Estate Association. $25,000 from AGC. It's a contractors group, for those who don't know. But at some point in time, we've got to start looking at these developments and ask ourselves, are they reasonable, and do they fit in with what we envision for our city of Wheat Ridge? And it's not that I don't think the guy shouldn't have a chance to build on his property, but property line to property line, I just don't get it. And I'll be voting no.
Additional discussion, Ms. Hoppy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It has not yet been 6 months, but I tried to get a consensus to add bulk playing to our other residential zoning, and we did not get a consensus on it. So I've been waiting the clock out so that I can bring that up again for bulk playing. And, you know, once my 6-month time is up, I will. because I think that these are the kinds of things, especially also in R2, that the bulk plan is good and should be applied. So, but at this point, it's not. So with the ordinances that we have currently, I think this is a good project. I also will be asking for someone to support me in looking at a solar access ordinance to bring to study session. And again, these are things we don't have, but they're not things that we can't have in the future.
Additional discussion, Ms. Davis?
So I'd like to thank Ms. Rose for coming today, and I appreciate your discussion and your openness and willingness, yet requests in a productive manner. So thank you for that. And it sounds like, Mr. Roach, that you'll respect that and work with your neighbor on that, because I think that's also very important, because there's a lot of unintended consequences that unless you really know, I think, especially in a situation like that. So I appreciate your openness and willingness. I would agree with Ms. Hoppy on the bulk plane. And I also would agree that I don't know that I'd want a ton of windows facing 38th. So to just see the 38th view, it's not the best view, but at the same time, I'm not sure I want my, shower window or whatever facing 38. So I somewhat respect that. I will say, I own a 3-bedroom house and I have no kids. So it's not necessarily that every 3-bedroom house is going to have kids. I think it does allow the diversity. It does allow some affordability. It could be a young couple that has 2 offices, or a young couple that has a guest room and an office. And I think we can't guess on sometimes that everybody wants a yard. A lot of people spend the weekend hiking and things like that. But I appreciate your willingness to work with the neighbor, and vice versa, the neighbor working with you. So thank you for that.
Additional discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Motion carries 7-1.
Thank you. Ms. Davis, we will go to item number 5. Would you please introduce item number 5?
All right, thank you. Resolution number 36-2019, a resolution approving a major subdivision with right-of-way dedication for property zoned mixed-use commercial MUC located at 4331 Van Street, case number WS-19-03, Town Center North subdivision, filing number 3. This is a public hearing. And
Thank you. This is a public hearing on a resolution. It is quasi-judicial. If you believe that you will testify on this, would you please stand and raise your right hand and take an oath for me? Do you affirm that to tell the truth as you understand it in this matter? If you do, please answer, I do. Thank you. You may be seated. Mr. Goff, we have a presentation on this tonight from staff.
We do. One of our newer planners, Stephanie.
Stephanie, please go ahead.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Stephanie Stevens. I'm the senior planner here at the City of Wheat Ridge in the Community Development Department. Here tonight to present to you case number WS-1903. It's approval of a major subdivision with right-of-way dedication, and it is located at 4331 Vance Street. I would like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, the digital presentation, as well as the subdivision regulations. The property is within the City of Wheat Ridge, and all appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met. Therefore, City Council does have jurisdiction to hear this case. So looking at an aerial of the property itself is located just south of 44th Avenue between Wadsworth and Vance Street. It is the 3rd phase of the Town Center North project, which is shown on the screen as Lot 1, Lot 2, and Lot 3. So this would be Lot 3. The original subdivision was approved in 2011, which subdivided this into the 3 lots. To the east side, which is a part of the Town Center North project, was built for senior affordable apartments, and Lot 3 is planned for market rate multifamily apartments. The site is 2.78 acres. There is mostly commercial, retail, and restaurants surrounding the vicinity to the west, south, and north, with the affordable housing apartments to the east, and then some residential R2 zoned properties to the southeast, just across 43rd Avenue. The site itself is zoned MUC. The surrounding vicinity was zoned MUC by the city in 2010. It was subdivided in 2011, and then the concept plan for Town Center North was approved as well in 2011, which triggered the development of Phase 1, which was Lot 2 of the original subdivision, then moved to Phase 2, which is Lot 1 up against 44th Avenue in 2014. And you can see on the zoning slide as well that R2 that lies adjacent to the southeast. Mostly everything is zoned MUC in the surrounding vicinity, and then there's some C1 and RC zoning to the north and northeast. The request or purpose proposal before you is for a one-lot re-subdivision of that Lot 3 to be known as Lot 1 of Town Center North Subdivision Filing Number 3. It does serve the purpose to dedicate right-of-way to extend 43rd Avenue on the south side of the property. The lot is thereby being reduced from 2.78 acres to 2.42 acres to accommodate that right-of-way. It's a 56-foot strip of right-of-way that would extend 43rd Avenue. And then there's also a public access easement for open space, emergency access easement, and drainage easement on the property. Talking briefly about that public access or open space easement, when the original subdivision was approved in 2011, the parkland dedication requirements were waived, and it was deferred to this phase, so this is the third phase, to require 0.15 acres of dedication to serve the entire lots 1, 2, and 3. So they are showing a public access easement over what is going to be a park for the area, or publicly accessible open space, we'll call it, but it is over a public access. The right-of-way is shown on the screen in red to the south, the extension of 43rd Avenue. There's also an emergency access and public access easement that will be developed to street standards along the west side of the property, bringing people out north to 44th Avenue. In terms of process, the subdivision was referred out. Since we're not a full-service city, it was referred out to fire, water, sanitation, as well as internal departments and external agencies. There were no concerns remaining from the outside agencies. Public Works and Planning have found the plat to be approvable. They actually addressed the minor revisions, and then civil documents and site plan are currently under review. The Planning Commission recommended approval at the June 6th Planning Commission hearing, and we sent the application on a 15-day public hearing noticing for City Council, so all public notification requirements have been met, and that we have not received any phone calls or letters on the matter. So with that, staff is recommending approval in that it finds that it meets the subdivision regulations, all the agencies can serve the property, and the plat facilitates the development of the concept plan and site plan that are before us. Therefore, we are requesting one condition of approval, which is shown in your staff report, to require a subdivision improvement agreement prior to plat recording, which is in process currently. I'm here to answer any questions you have, and the applicant is here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't recall whether I had opened the public hearing or not, so I'm going to do it now, effective just prior to when when I administered the oath. So that public hearing is open. Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Before we go to questions of staff, I would like to open this up for public comment on this item. I have no one signed up to speak. Is there anyone here who is not signed up who would like to speak on this item? I see no one here to speak, so we will close that portion, and I'm going to open this up for questions of council for the staff. And Ms. Stevens, is the applicant here? Okay, I'm sure that the applicant, if you need to ask questions, can take questions. So do we have questions for our staff on this item? Don't everybody talk at one time. Okay, Ms. Davis.
So I have a question, Mr. Downs. I know.
So before you go on to the
oh.
questions, let's bring Mr. Downs up to the podium, and let me ask: did you stand up and affirm to tell the truth when I administered the oath before? Then you don't need to do it again. Please introduce yourself and give us your address.
Sure. Tyler Downs with Wazee Partners. We're the applicant, and address is 1801 Broadway in Denver.
Ms. Davis.
So I have just a quick question, because I know at one point I thought they were going to be market rate senior.
Yes.
But you changed it?
No, that's the intention.
Okay, so the intent is, it kind of says in here, it's like multifamily or something.
Right.
Maybe they're still called that, but the
Yeah,
intention.
that is the correct
Okay.
way to describe them, and we're still determining whether or not it's going to be a 55 and up
Yeah.
or 62 and up. It depends on financing product that we use, but it'll either be 55 and up or 62 and up for
Okay.
one member of the household.
Okay, so that's good, because then it'll still, I get that, then, if somebody's,
Somebody has a younger
granddaughter or
spouse or-
somebody,
yeah,
or, was living with them, okay, okay. So that's good, because it'll be a good blend with what's already there. So, yeah, that was really my question, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. Before I close the public hearing and ask for a motion, are there any more questions of staff or the applicant? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing, and Ms. Davis, a motion is in order.
All right, thank you. I move to approve resolution number 36-2019, a resolution approving a major subdivision with a right-of-way dedication for property zoned mixed-use commercial MUC located at 4331 Van Street, case number WS-19-03, Town Center North, subdivision, filing number 3, for the following reasons. City Council has conducted a proper public hearing that meets all public notice requirements as required by Section 26-109 and 26-407 of the Code of Laws. The requested subdivision has been reviewed by the Planning Commission, which has forwarded its recommendation of approval. The subdivision plat has been found in compliance with Article 4 of Chapter 26 of the Code of Laws. All agencies can provide services to the property with improvements installed at the developer's expense. And number 5, the subdivision will facilitate development of the site in compliance with the approved Town Center North concept plan. With the following condition, the developer shall enter into a subdivision improvement agreement prior to recordation of the subdivision plat.
Second.
Give it to Dozeman.
Second by Mr. Urban.
Oh.
I have a motion and a second. Now we will have discussion on the motion. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. We will move to item number 6. Mr. Urban, would you introduce item number 6?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution 37-2019, a resolution approving the service plan for the Ridgetop Village Metropolitan District. At issue, City Council is asked to approve a service plan for the Ridgetop Village Metropolitan District, a taxing district to be used to finance certain improvements for residential development. Service plan approval is the means by which the city oversees the creation of such districts, which ultimately approved for formation by the district court.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, a resolution. It is not quasi-judicial, but I am going to open the public hearing now. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this?
We have a presentation from Russ Dykstra, who you see or heard from at a study session a few weeks ago. So this is a public hearing, so he's going to go through that same presentation this evening. We'd start with that as the presentation.
Okay, Mr. Dykstra, would you like to join us and introduce yourself at the podium and then proceed?
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. It's good to see you again. I will go through this briefly, and then if you have questions, we can follow up since we went through it all at the work session.
And if you would introduce yourself and give us an address.
Sorry, Russ Dykstra of Spencer Fane, 1700 Lincoln Street, Suite 2000, Denver, Colorado.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so what we have before us tonight is the organization of the Ridgetop Metropolitan District. We're going to talk about the location, the proposed public improvements that you're familiar with. The location which you're familiar with is generally 4000 Upham Street. And here is the general area and vicinity showing you the development in the area along the 38th corridor, which is within a block of this property. The nearby redevelopment that's occurred in the area as well. All right, and now we'll get to the meat of the purpose for the Metropolitan District. Districts are formed in the state, throughout the state, for the provision of public improvements and the operation maintenance of those improvements, as well as, in this case, covenant enforcement, which is a fairly unique use of districts, but we've been doing more and more of it as we see more urban use of districts and the elimination of the overlap of a district to finance the public improvements and then an HOA. It helps be a much more efficient structure in that way, so you don't have overlapping management, accounting, legal, everything else. Here's a brief overview of the site plan, which you're familiar with, generally showing the landscaping, the parking, and behind it is the storm drainage facility that's going to be shared with Jeffco Schools that the district would be responsible for. And the cost breakdown of the eligible public improvements. By statute, a special district can only pay for public improvements, and those are, again, things that are either owned by the district itself or that are dedicated to the city or to another governmental jurisdiction. We cannot, do private things that would otherwise benefit the development. And the total of the public improvements in a conservative estimate is $1.734 million. All right, the key characteristics, again, as we've talked about, are going to be the financing of the public improvements, mostly the interior streets. The storm drainage basin is the big one. The internal roadways, not only the construction of those, but the operation and maintenance of those going forward, as well as, again, the covenant enforcement. The financial characteristics, the maximum would be the 51 mils for debt, operations and maintenance would be 10 mils. For a total of 61.7 under the current Gallagher adjusted rate. We have put in a $2 million maximum, although from the improvements list, that 1.7 number, we just wanted to leave a little bit of extra in there to make sure in case something unforeseen happens with the detention pond or something along that. The impact for a $500,000 home, which these are expected to be in that range, is about $3,000 a year. And based on the replacement of the HOA and non-existence of those types of fees, we feel the $257 a month is very much in the market range for those types of services. And I am available for any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Before we go to questions, I would like to open this up for public comment. I don't have anyone signed up to speak on this item, but is there anyone here who has not signed up who would like to speak on this item? You may do so at this time. I don't see anyone, so we will go to questions from council of staff or the applicant. Before I close the public hearing, are there any questions? I'm going to close the public hearing. Mr. Urban, a motion is in order.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve Resolution 37-2019, a resolution approving the service plan for the Ridgetop Village Metropolitan District.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Ms. Weaver. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Motion carries 7-1 with Matthews voting no.
Thank you. We will go to agenda item number 7. Ms. Weaver, would you please introduce item number 7?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is resolution number 38-2019, a resolution approving a major subdivision with right-of-way dedication for property zoned planned mixed-use development, PMUD, and planned commercial development, PCD, located at the southwest quadrant of Highway 58 and I-70, case number WS-19-04, Clear Creek Crossing subdivision, filing number 3. I'm sorry, my voice keeps getting softer.
That's okay. Just keep getting closer to the mic. Mr. Goff, is Ms. Stevens going to provide us with oh, wait a minute. This is a public hearing on a resolution. It is quasi-judicial. I'm going to open the public hearing and administer an oath. If you intend to speak on this matter, please raise your hand. And do you affirm to tell the truth as you understand it in this matter? If you do, please answer, I do. Please be seated. Ms. Stevens, you may continue.
Hello again. For the record, Stephanie Stevens, planner with the City of Wheat Ridge Community Development Department, presenting to you tonight case number WS-1904, which is a major approval of a major subdivision with right-of-way dedication for the property known as Clear Creek Crossing. Again, I would like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, the digital presentation, and the subdivision regulations. The property is within the City of Wheat Ridge. All appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met, and therefore the City Council has jurisdiction to hear this case. On the screen, you'll find an aerial of the property known as Clear Creek Crossing, generally located in the southwest quadrant of Highway 58 and I-70, just north of 32nd Avenue. The La Quinta lies there. The property is still currently vacant. You're seeing some grading and utility work take place at the moment. There is the Coors water storage pond that exists on the site, as well as the underpass at 40th Avenue, which connects to Youngfield Street. The site itself is zoned a mixture of planned mixed-use development and planned commercial development. The zoning boundaries are a little bit different than the subdivision boundaries that you can see. So it's under a few different ownerships, primarily Evergreen. The portion that's still zoned PCD is still owned by Coors, and then SCL Health has taken ownership of part of the property that's zoned PMUD as well. Adjacent to the site, the highways are zoned agriculturally. To the north is the 44th Industrial Park, PID, planned industrial development. There's some planned commercial developments over on the east side, including Applewood Shopping Center. And then on the south is the 70 West Business Center commercial development, and Jefferson County Properties, which primarily contains single-family residential homes on the south and southwest side, as well as the Applewood Golf Course on the west. The request and purpose of the subdivision plat before you tonight is for a 13-lot re-subdivision with right-of-way dedication, but it's primarily focused on the realignment of 40th Avenue and Clear Creek Drive intersection. While it appears that the plat itself is being reconfigured, the lots are not changing except for what's being impacted by the 40th Avenue and Clear Creek Drive intersection. And I'll kind of walk you through those in just a moment. Staff also requested some clarity on easement notes, some things that we were having trouble interpreting, including the Denver water easement notes, cross access, the secondary trail, and had them add a note for RTD, a future RTD bus transit station, which I'll walk you through a bit here in a second. The plat itself is 12 pages because the property is large, so it's about 210 acres, so it takes up a lot just to go through the different aspects of it. But the first couple pages are your standard notes, easements, ownership blocks. Pages 4 through 7 show the existing easements and lot lines to be vacated, and then pages 8 through 11 and the plat in your packet are really the proposed conditions that you are looking at requesting the requested approval of today. Page 12 is an easier view of it all with an overall subdivision to show you the entire full context of the plat. So I'll just walk you through the proposed changes, and if you have any other questions on the rest, but the rest is in your staff report. So sheet 2 is the sheet that was impacted by the plat note changes. The only changes for subdivision filing number 3 are shown in the highlights in yellow. Impacts note 16, 17, 18, 22, as well as the Denver water note. So Denver Water has requested a specific note, which we worked with them to provide where it met both the city's and Denver's needs because of the increase in depth and width of the Denver water utilities that traverse the site throughout the entire site through the central version. This triggered the reconfiguration of the right-of-way and are the primary reasons for this. And Denver Water requested a note so that we're bringing attention to the easement agreements that are in place so that owners are aware of what they're purchasing and that they need to go to Denver Water for approval as well. Cross-access note number 18 was a clarified note that staff requested. There's always been a note regarding cross-access since the original subdivision in 2008. This was a clarification to make sure that we're getting both pedestrian and vehicular access through an internal roadway network, which is part of the zoning document approval, which in the interim until because there's currently a condition where a cul-de-sac is allowed until such time that the northern properties develop, and then once the northern property is developed, the Clear Creek Drive will have to extend all the way. But in the interim, we need that internal roadway network to function to be able to get traffic around. So that is why we wanted to clarify that. The secondary trail notes are something that was kind of missed with the first go-around. So the plat was originally subdivided in 2008, and then again in 2018 to prepare for the planned mixed-use development. But the secondary trail is along the central eastern portion of the site, along the CDOT right-of-way, along I-70, and that's a requirement in the zoning document as well. So this is a reflection of that zoning document, just making sure we get a future trail that goes up to Clear Creek through the private properties if needed. And lastly, the RTD Regional Transportation District Bus Transfer Station note that was requested was in coordination with RTD as well as the city. There's been contemplation of there being a transfer station to land in Clear Creek Crossing. They are exploring several different possibilities, but there was a specific request that we tried to accommodate it in Clear Creek Crossing. So we've had them place a note that would reserve a specific location in Block 4, Lot 1, which is in the southwest portion of the site, to accommodate the potential for RTD bus transfer station, and it does show at a maximum of 1.5 acres, which meets RTD's needs as well. And I thought I would just show the main overall plat sheet to help you understand the full context. All the lots and blocks that are shown in blue have not changed. They're the same configuration as previously. The orange is really what you're looking at, which is the Clear Creek Drive and 40th Avenue intersection that was adjusted slightly, and those lots that are surrounding it, which are shown in red. Those adjusted a little bit in size just in response to that easement. None of them are increasing or decreasing less or more or less than 0.4 acres. And I'll show you a better illustration of that. This slide also shows some of the easement changes. They were more of an administrative review, but we wanted to show you the full extent of what's changing on the plat. So in the purple, which is along the east side of Block 2, Lot 1, is showing a new storm sewer easement, as well as that yellow access easement that I talked about with the secondary trail. That's giving access to that. The Denver water easement, which is shown in green, was widened just south of the intersection, but it still traverses the site in full across the entire thing. Just that portion was widened a little bit. And then they are abolishing an easement, which is shown in teal, that is Applewood Sanitation District easement. And that's the full extent of the changes. This slide is a better depiction of the right-of-way changes, which are the need for this plat. So that's the right-of-way dedication. The red shows you what was existing, and the blue or purplish color shows you the new right-of-way dedication that's being proposed. And as you can see, the lots surrounding it itself are pretty minimal changes to the lot sizes. The Block 1, Lot 1, let's see, the lots and blocks on the east side are not increasing more or less than 0.3 or 0.41 acres, and then on the west side are less than 0.09 acres in change. The process itself, we've addressed the best our capability, the concerns of any outside agencies. It did go out on full referral since we're not a full service city. West Metro Fire, Sanitation, Water, etc. And Public Works and Planning have found the plat to be approvable at this point. We took the Plat 2 Planning Commission on June 6, where they recommended approval of the subdivision. And then we've also done all of our 15-day public hearing and noticing for City Council, and have not received any formal phone calls or letters in regards to the plat application itself. So with that, staff is concluding that it does meet our regulations. It complies with the standards of our subdivision regulations. Agencies conserve the property. It also facilitates the development of the outline development plan and zoning documents that are in place. So with that, we're recommending approval with the condition to require a title commitment to show all of these easement changes prior to plat recording. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Applicant is here as well, and thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to questions from council, I'd like to open this up for a public comment. I don't have anyone signed up to speak from the public, but if you have not signed up but would like to speak on this item, you may come forward now and speak. I don't see anyone, so we will close our public comment, and I will open the open for questioning of council, of the staff, or the applicant. Do we have questions for staff or the applicant? I have one for you, Mr. Goff. With this issue, does this resolve any and all of our outstanding issues with Denver Water Department relative to
That's a big question.
to this project?
I wouldn't say all. I can't promise all. I would say it satisfies most of our issues that we've been struggling through over the last several months. And once this is approved, the hook ramp project is slated to start any time this month. And I believe still Christine is here, and she can have more specifics if you want to ask her. But yes, this was, I would like to thank council for being patient with this, and thank Stephanie and Ken and staff and Jerry. Mr. Dahl worked on this. This was a very huge undertaking to get to this point with Denver Water, and it was very complicated. It was, I was just telling Mr. Dahl, it was pretty nice to see it in one page on all that work that went into just a few small easement changes. So yes, to answer your question, this solves most of our issues with Denver Water.
Thank you. Before I close the public hearing, any additional questions for staff or the applicant? Then I'm going to close the public hearing. Ms. Weaver, a motion is in order.
I move to approve resolution number 38-2019, a resolution approving a major subdivision with right-of-way dedication for property zoned planned mixed-use development, PMUD, and planned commercial development, PCD, located at the southwest quadrant of Highway 58 and I-70, case number WS 19-04.
Second.
We have a motion and a
Wait.
second.
I'm sorry, I have a lot more to read.
I guess a little early, so anyway, continue.
You are excluded from the rest.
Case number WS-19-04, Clear Creek Crossing subdivision, filing number 3 for the following reasons. 1, City Council has conducted a proper public hearing that meets all of the public notice requirements as required by Section 26-109 and 26-407 of the Code of Laws. Number 2, the requested subdivision has been reviewed by the Planning Commission, which has forwarded its recommendation of approval. Number 3, the subdivision plat has been found in compliance with Article 4 of Chapter 26 of the Code of Laws. All agencies can provide services to, number 4, all agencies can provide services to the property with improvements installed at the developer's expense. And 5, the subdivision will facilitate development of the site in compliance with the approved outline development plan with the following condition. Number 1, an updated title commitment shall be provided prior to the recordation of the plat.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Mr. Pond. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. That concludes the agenda items that we have on tonight's agenda. We will move now to city managers' matters. Mr. Goff.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to apologize to anyone that showed up for our Anderson Park ribbon cutting this last Saturday. We tried to get the word out as best as we could, but I think there were still a few people that showed up, but it was just too wet and soggy to be roaming around in the park. So that has been rescheduled to this Saturday, 10:30 a.m. for the Anderson Park ribbon cutting. So it's supposed to be a beautiful day, so please come on out. We'll be giving tours of all the improvements at the park.
Thank you. City attorney's matters, Mr. Dahl.
Nothing tonight, thanks.
Thank you. We will go to elected official matters. Start with Mr. Matthews.
Not tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Keeter.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Ms. Dozman.
Yes, just a quick reminder that the Carnation Festival Board is still soliciting submissions for our royalty, the festival royalty. Parade registration is open as well as vendor registration and everything, so go check out our website at thecarnationfestival.com, and we look forward to having you this year for our 50th celebration.
Thank you. Mr. Urban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank Joyce Manwaring for her many years of service to the city of Wheat Ridge and all she's done for us, and wish her best of luck in retirement.
Thank you. Ms. Davis.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Weaver.
I'd just like to clarify that I'm not making any of you sick tonight. I had something this morning that's called a tonsil stone. Didn't know you could get one. So just wanted to clarify. I also, and I'm going to have a spoiler alert right now, I am extending an invitation to all of my fellow city council and the mayor for a wonderful, the best float that is going to be in the parade. Goats on a float. That's all I'm going to say.
Are we doing yoga on the float too? Goat yoga?
Goats are on the float. The goats are on the float. We're walking.
Mr. Bond.
Thank you. I also want to thank Joyce Manwaring for her service to the city, and I had the pleasure of serving on the Parks and Rec Commission, and I know how hard she works and her staff, and just want to thank her for all her service.
Thank you. Ms. Hoppy.
Thank you. I also want to extend my thanks to Joyce, and also Janice Smothers has retired, and she is our support staff, and I'm really going to miss her, and so I'd like to say thank you to her for all of her hard work. Also, I would like to see if any, at this time, if any counselors would like to support me in adding solar access ordinance to a study session for a future study session.
Mr. Pond will join you on that, and Ms. Weaver, so we can get that on the calendar.
Thank you.
All set? Okay. Well, I've got a couple of things. I'd like to thank Joyce Manwaring for her years of service to our city. She's been a great person to work with. I've worked with her both on council and as mayor and as a contractor, and she's a real professional, and I thank for her. I want to thank Janice Smothers, our assistant to the mayor and city council, has done a great job, and I wish her well on her retirement. Want to say, hey, congrats to the boys WRHS baseball team bringing home the gold. So that's great, and thanks for coming to celebrate with us tonight. And in addition to Anderson Park ribbon cutting next Saturday, this Wednesday is Bike to Work Day. So if you were so inclined, the weather should be good. We'd love to see you in our city riding your bike to work. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.